I'm back. I'm here to do a recommendation video. I don't do a lot of these, but I figure because we're heading into summer season, I would do some romances. So this is mostly inspired by Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. I just finished watching Bridgerton season 2. We got an announcement that Penelope and Colin's book is going to be next. This is definitely one of my favorite books in that whole series. I think it definitely was my favorite book when I read it, but now that I got to see who they have casted in the story, I am even more invested in this story. If you don't know, this is Penelope and Colin's story, and Penelope and Colin have known each other since they were younger, and you see them in the story, but this is a friends to more romance, which is definitely my favorite trope. I tend to struggle with stories that are new characters and you meet someone and fall madly in love. Those stories I like, but I don't always feel the connection between the characters. Second chance romances or friends to more. These are all books that do have a friends to more element, or one is just they have known each other for a really, really long time. But most of these do have a friendship element to it. And that is why I wanted to talk about it. But I did want to talk about Romancing Mr. Bridgerton because you do see them when they're younger, and a pretty devastating incident happens in the past that really sets Penelope on the track that she doesn't think Colin likes her in that way. And we got that in the TV show, and I was really pleased with that. So, yeah, this is definitely what I wanted to chat about because it's definitely one that I really like in the series, and it definitely reaffirms why I'm really excited for season 3 because it's a romance trope that I really, really do like. The next book I am going to chat about is another newer release, and that is Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho. This came out relatively recently, and it is some of my favorite elements. So you follow Elena Sue, and she is on the prom planning committee. She really has no plans to go to prom. She used to be friends with someone that has joined a K-pop band, and they had made plans to go to prom together. But suddenly when he becomes super popular, she sort of loses all desire to go to prom. She has a very, very popular twin, and suddenly her ex-friend, Robbie Cho, turns up on her doorstep telling her he's going to take her to prom. And hilarity drama ensues. I love the friendship dynamics between these two characters and how much that is really developed into the story. I also just like how they keep using their relationship from the past, and it just is a really, really rich read. It also has some other elements that I really liked. Girl next door, small town star meets small town girl. It has a lot of elements that I like. There's also a saving element, and I really just like Robbie in this one. I'll be very, very honest. So this is another one that I wanted to share. If you were fans of So This Is What Happy Looks Like, Jennifer Smith, I think you'd really like this, but also just has a friendship component that I really, really do like. The next book is a little bit off tangent, but I did read it relatively recently, and that is With and Without You by Emily Weberly and Austin Sigmund Broca. This is sort of friends to more, but it's also like a second chance romance. But the reason I'm including this is the characters have been together for a really, really long time, and they also have been sort of developed in a relationship that were became more friend-like towards the end of it. So you follow Sienna and Patrick. It is a dual, this one is dual point of view. Bridgerton is dual point of view. This is single point of view, which I sometimes like my romances to be dual point of view. But this one I think had a lot of self-discovery elements, so it did work that she was sort of on her own a little bit. But you follow Sienna, and she sort of decided that before her senior year, she wants to break up with her boyfriend Patrick and have a free senior year so she can sort of focus a little bit more on self-discovery and finding out what she likes and not really focusing on Patrick. She feels that her relationship with Patrick is sort of gotten a little bit dull and a little bit boring. However, things go awry when Patrick reveals that he is moving to Arizona, and instead of breaking up with him, they decide to do long distance. Sienna sort of believes that their relationship will fizzle out once they're not near each other, but things don't go according to plan, and Sienna finds herself falling even more in love with Patrick when he's away. Really, really compelling. I love this story, and it was great. It had so many elements where they sort of dive back into their past, and it was great. I just really, really liked it. So The next couple are pure friends to more over time, and I loved it. So we're going to talk about the Queen. We're going to talk about Casey West, and this is Love, Life, and the List. This is the first book in her little trilogy that she did with Harper. I think it's Love, Life, and the List, Fame, Fate, in the First Kit, and The Moment of Truth. So these are all in that little series. This one is Friends to More. So you follow Abby, and she has her summer's not going as she planned. She's an artist, and she really wants to have a show in this gallery, but her art teacher, or the person that's like running the gallery, says she doesn't have enough life experience. And she is really dealing with the unrequited crush on her best friend Cooper. Her mother has a lot of issues with anxiety, so she sort of gives her a list to sort of break out of her comfort zone, to do 10 things that will help her face her fears. And in that way, her and Cooper wind up falling in love. And it's just a very, very cute story. Very, very sweet, very, very mild-mannered, but one that I just really, really liked. And it really does focus a lot on their friendship and how they got to that point. It also does focus a lot on Abby sort of, going outside of herself, sort of stepping outside of her comfort zones. A lot of these stories do have that element where like the character is really focused on self-discovery. That might also be a trope that I really, really like, but all of these books do have that. These characters do, in high school, feel a little bit lost, and I think characters like that do very, very well because middle schoolers feel lost. I work with middle school, high schoolers feel lost. I remember feeling lost in high school. So I like that element, like their lives are not picture perfect, and even if their lives feel picture perfect, there still is stuff to like develop. But I really like this. I read this so long ago. It's definitely on my reread list, and one that I really hope you will check out. Another book I'm going to chat about is You Have a Match by Emma Lord. I will say this is probably my least favorite Emma Lord book, but it does have my favorite trope. So you follow this girl named Abby, and she signs up for a DNA test to help her best friend Leo, who is doing it because he's been adopted, and he wants to know what his cultural background is. But when Abby does it, she finds out she has a full half-blooded sister that is older than her that was given up for adoption. And she winds up going to this camp to reconnect with her sister, and along the way, she winds up developing a relationship with her best friend. I will say it definitely is like Parent Trap at camp, and I think the highlight of this story was definitely the romance for me. I think the other elements weren't as strong as I was hoping for, but you definitely know that Abby and Leo are friends for a really, really long time, and I like that they have a nice history to pull from. It was a story that definitely captured me as a romance, and I really like that Abby got herself into this predicament because she was trying to help Leo out, and I just really, really liked it. So these are all the physical books that I'm going to chat about, and now I'm going to talk about a couple of ones that I just really enjoyed overall and still want to talk about. A wild assortment, but the first book I'm going to chat about is Better Off Friends by Elizabeth Yulberg. Here's a photo. Definitely a classic, Friends to More, and it's set over 4 years, which you don't get very, very often. I read one other book by Katie Cotugno, Top 10, that tried to do this, and it wasn't as successful, but definitely read this one because I thought that it was really interesting. But it's basically set over 4 years as these two characters, as they're sort of developing a relationship, and after every chapter, you're in the future and they're telling you this story, and they're sort of like having a conversation saying, oh, do you remember when that happened, sort of referencing what story they're telling us. It was a really, really fun read, and I like that it was such a long time to tell this story and how you really saw the progression of their relationship. It reminded me a lot of a relationship I've had in my life, and I just felt really connected to it. It was really, really cool. I just really, really enjoyed it. I don't know if this one was told in one point of view or two. I feel like it was one point of view. But I really loved it. I really want to read more books by Elizabeth Yulberg, but this book was a standout for me. Really cool structure wise. It was one of the first contemporaries that I read that had like a unique structure that I really liked. So yeah, definitely pick up Better Off Friends because it does this trope so well. And the next book I'm going to chat about is not going to be a shock to anyone, and that is Lola and the Boy Next Door by Stephanie Perkins. Bit of tangent. I am a big fan of Bridgerton. My favorite book, as I said previously, is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. by Penn and Colin, for the story of Penn and Colin. I always fall for like the least popular romance couple. It always happens. Like if you give me a romance couple, I'm probably going to like the one that doesn't get chosen or the story that no one else likes. So the next one is my favorite Stephanie Perkins book, which is Lola and the Boy Next Door, but no one else that I like speak to seems to like the story as much. So I just find it funny that Penn and Colin is in this list and so is Lola and the Boy Next Door, because they're both my personal favorites, but for some reason not as many people as I know in my life actually like those stories, but that's okay. I am an underdog through and through. But this book follows Lola, and she is a little bit of a wildcracker, like a firecracker. She dresses really, really weird and wonky, and she's working with Anna at this movie ticket place, and her best friend from her youth moves back next door to her. So she is Lola and the Boy Next Door, and her Calliope, it's Calliope and her brother Cricket. And Calliope moves back because she is going to like, she's a figure skater, and they had a pretty bad falling out when they were younger. They had a big fight before they moved, and this whole story is them sort of getting in each other's way. Cricket was pitched to me as David Tennant in Doctor Who, which I totally saw, but I really love this story. It was such a nice read, and the story just like kind of chips away at Lola's harsh edges, and it really makes Lola not only a more interesting character as the story go on, but you grow to really like Lola by the end, and she's definitely a fan favorite for me, and that is why she's on this list. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite Stephanie Perkins book, and I really wish she would write some more romances. She's calmed down like the horror train, which has not been my favorite, but this book is definitely a standout, and if you've not read it, I think you would like it because it's really, really sweet. Perfect to read around the Olympics because it does have like a really fun ice skating element to it, so maybe read around the Winter Olympics whenever the Winter Olympics come back, or just like in the winter in general. But I really do like this one. And then the next book I am going to chat about is Long Way Home by Katie Mcgarry. Chevy and Violet. And so this book is the third book in a series, takes place around a motorcycle club. And Violet is the only girl in this group. Chevy and her were friends when they were younger. They had a relationship, I think. And then something happened which led to her dad dying. Now they don't talk. They're suddenly thrust back into a relationship together where they have to go on the run together when something connected to her dad's death sort of resurfaces. It's been a while since I read this story, but I loved it. It was like forced proximity. It was like friends to more, but also like a second chance romance story. So many elements that I loved. And I just like seeing the characters again. What basically there's a rival club that comes after Violet, and they have to go on the run together. And I love this story so much. This series was not my favorite of hers, and I sometimes struggle with the other two books in the series, but I really did like this one. So those are all the books I'm going to chat about in this video. Let me know what other tropes you would like to see me do, and I will try to add them to the filming docket for this summer. We are getting close to summer, and that means I have a lot more time to film. So tell me in the comments what other videos you would like to see me film, what other recommendation videos would you like to see me film, and I will talk to you for my next video. Bye, friends.